Hello everyone. Very good evening. Hope you all are doing good. Can someone please confirm if I'm audible?
Yes, sir. You're
Yeah.
audible.
Uh, all right. So I guess we can get started with the today's session. So what we are going to do today is to see a demonstration of Vuex. I hope all of you would have gone through the lectures for Vuex and Vue Router. Vue Router, I guess, has already been done. So today the agenda is to have a discussion on Vuex. What is the need? What are the problems that it solves, and things that are related to Moro. Okay. So before we get started, I hope that most of you, or instead all of you, would have finished watching the lectures in which this Vuex was covered. So would anyone of you like to, give us an idea or an overall brief that what Vuex is all about and why do we really need? Anyone who has understood the basic problem that this solves?
Shall I?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So in DOM, we are having a tree-like structure. So it becomes easy to transfer the data between parent and child or in that hierarchy. But in order to transfer the data between two components which are not in hierarchy, it's quite difficult. So we use a state management firmware, this Vuex, which is centrally is maintaining a copy of your data. So whenever you want to access the data, you need to use mutations, and through that the data gets centrally available to everybody. The same thing can also be done by using the global keyword. But the problem with global keyword is that if all components are going to update it, then it becomes difficult to keep a track of which one is to be managed, which one is the correct one. So that's why we go with this Vuex library. That's all, sir.
Great, nice. Just wanted to confirm one thing, that does it maintain a copy of your storage, or is it?
Yes, sir. Yes, it replaces the old copy with the newer one.
Sorry, can you repeat it?
It maintains a copy of your data. So whenever the changes are being made, state of old state of your data is maintained. So whenever you want to replace, you can replace. Whenever changes are made, I'm not able to recall, but it gets replaced with the newer one.
Yeah, of course, but you need to invoke some actions or mutations in order to change the state, right?
Yes, sir. Through mutations, that is only possible.
Okay.
That's all I will recall.
Okay, all right. Yeah, so of course you gave a correct explanation, but I slightly disagree with the copy, because as far as this Vuex is concerned, this means single source of. That means you want to store the information that is going to be used across the components. So I would not say that it's a copy. Okay, so what will I do is I'll right now share my screen. I'll take you all through the Vuex documentation, and we'll show you a few basic diagrams which can help you understand that how does it work. I hope my browser screen should be visible to all of you. Is it visible?
Yes, sir.
Great.
Visible, yeah.
All right, so I'm currently on the Vuex docs. So right now I have opened it for 3.x. Well, most probably 3.x and 4.x, they are all going to be same. There will be a few syntax changes here and there, but the concepts are going to remain same, in my opinion. Okay, so there are basically three things: state, view, and actions. So view is what? View is something that a user sees, and how that view is constructed using a state. What is state? State is some kind of data using which a view has been constructed. For example, if I'm viewing this page currently, so there is a lot of content that is visible on this web page. So this data is basically what we call state, and what I'm seeing here is basically constructed out of. And what a user can do is, user can perform some actions which can manipulate the state, and in return to that, the view will also change. For example, if I click on any link here, so this is equivalent to performing an action. This action is going to maybe fetch some things, fetch some data from some remote server, and then whatever state that it will get from the server, it is going to present in front of as a view. So these are the three things that are basically involved in it. But in order to understand it in a more detailed manner, we would like to see one more diagram. So this is basically the diagram that is going to make everything clear, that how everything works in Vuex. Now here in this diagram, we would like to start with what? We would like to start with state. And what is state? Can someone tell me? We just discussed it a few seconds ago.
Data.
Yeah,
Copy of data.
Correct. State is any data. So what is going to happen is that we are going to use that state in order to render a component, or let's say render a page. Right now, of course, if we are storing some information, there is a high chance that that information will get updated, will get modified at some point. So how do we do that? What we do is we dispatch actions, right? Whatever user is doing, let's say I'm clicking somewhere, I'm entering something, and I'm doing whatever stuff here. What this should do is this should dispatch some actions. That means this should invoke some actions, and actions in turn, what should they do? If required, they can fetch the data from backend API. They can make some API calls, and once the result of that API has been received, that API call has been received, in return to that, what they should do is they should commit some mutations. Now, what is the purpose of committing a mutation? So mutation basically corresponds to modifying a particular state. That means you fetched some data from an API, and what you want is that fetched data to be stored in a particular state of your store. So what you will do is you will call a mutation, or you will commit a mutation. And what this mutation is going to do is this is going to overwrite the previous value of your state. Okay. Now, in this mutation, you are able to see these dev tools, because what happens is that whatever mutations that are committed in a store, they all are tracked by dev tools. So of course, you all have been using Vue dev tools all along, so you must be familiar with that. You can see that at what time that mutation was committed, which component does that. If you will use Vue 3 now, well, of course, Vue 3 is now the default version. So if you will use Vue 3, you may get some extra options as well with Vuex extension, browser extension. Like you can revert a mutation. For example, you did something, you committed a mutation that changes a state. What you could do is you can even revert that. How does the page look, or how the state was, if we will just try to revert this action that we just have performed. So these kind of things are also possible. Of course, we also call them time travel debugging. For example, there is an error that came out after performing certain actions in your application. So since you have all of the timestamps when each of the mutation was committed and which component did all of those, so you can always backtrack and can find out what the root of the cause. You can find out the root of the error. So yeah, this is how the whole cycle works. Firstly, you have state. Using state, you render a page, you render a view or component. User performs certain actions. Those actions in turn dispatch actions. So this is a special term in Vuex, actions. Within actions, you can make API calls if needed. Otherwise, what you need to do is you need to commit mutations, and mutations are going to be modifying certain states, and they can easily be monitored using dev tools. So this is how the complete cycle looks like. Now, you might be wondering that why do we really need to include this backend API part here? That is actions, inside actions only. Why not in mutations? So does anyone has the answer for this question?
Sir, we can't have asynchronous code in mutation.
Exactly. So that's precisely the reason that we don't use API calls within our mutations, because every mutation must be a synchronous function. Whereas actions can be asynchronous. That means you can make some API calls if required. Okay, so yeah, we just discussed that how the overall cycle looks like. Let me know if you guys have any issue at any point, or in understanding any step with whatever we have discussed so far. If this is clear, we will move on to create a small application.
So can you explain this part, mutations accessing dev tools? In what cases? Under what?
Okay, let's say
scenario?
you clicked somewhere. That click, what it does is it basically invokes an action, and that action in turn invokes a mutation, and that changes some state. And changing that state causes a database error, or let's say causes some kind of error. Like there might be so many errors that can be caused, and now you want to track, or you want to know that how that error was caused. So of course, if you want to know those things, you have to visit at the logs, right? That what actually happened, what resulted in that error, right? So in
Yes,
that
sir.
case, what would you do is you can always revert, or what I would say, yeah, revert a mutation. That means you can get back to how the application was before committing this mutation. So as you know that an error would have been caused by committing a particular mutation. This is something that is known. Now there would be some point where the application would work fine, because there was one mutation that actually caused all of those whole things. You found out that this was the mutation. Now you can actually check that what is the problem, that whatever state changes it is making, how is it causing the problem? Then you can resolve it.
So then doesn't that mean whenever the problem comes, the mutation is going to take to the previous state of the application?
No.
Okay.
That's not always necessary. Let's say what happened is that there is some kind of mutation. What it is doing is it is trying to add a duplicate value in an array. So once that duplicate element has been added, you are able to see two duplicate entries on your web page. So this is basically not an error, but I'm just giving you an example where you don't want duplicate things to come up on your screen, right? Let's say you are developing an e-commerce application, and you don't want that a seller who is selling the same product, the advertisement should come twice, or basically the product should come twice on the same screen. You don't want this to happen. So like in order to prevent that, what you would do is that in case that happens, you would go to DevTools, you would check that which mutation caused that change, caused that addition of duplicate element. Once you find out that mutation, you will simply revert that mutation, and then your application would get back to the previous state. That how does it look like before committing the mutation?
Okay, that's clear. Thank you.
So again, I would like to point out that that's not basically an error, right? I was just talking about the context. In my context, if I'm developing such application where I don't want duplicate things to occur on the same page, in that case, I would consider it as an error, a mistake. Okay. Yeah. So what we are going to do is we are going to create a similar type of application where what we have is a kind of web page where there will be a list of products that will be shown, and user will be given add item, remove item buttons for each of those components. And what we'll do is we will maintain a single source of truth. Single source of truth, that means we'll be maintaining a centralized storage system, so that whenever user clicks on add item or remove item, there will be a single place where all of these information will get updated. Because ultimately each of the component that is visible, or basically each of the product that is visible on the web page, they are different components, right? And let's say you click plus or add item on one component. No, this component has to communicate this change to what? To the parent, where it is being shown that how many items you have in your cart. So that needs to be updated. And wherever it is being used, that needs to be updated at that places. It might be, in a completely different component as well, that is not a direct parent or child of that component, which is causing the change. So that's why we will be maintaining a centralized storage system. And whenever a component is supposed to make a state change, we have to make sure that the state changes everywhere wherever it is being used. And of course, in order to get rid of making sure that this needs to be updated here also, if it is a child, then you have to pass an event in order to communicate it to the parent. If there is a child that is dependent on that state, you need to pass a prop so that the children also get notified about that state change. So we are just going to get rid of all of these things. We will simply make the change and everything else will be automatically updated since we are using Vuex. Okay, yeah, so I just talked about that. So in case I want to send some data from parent to child, and I want to send some data from child to parent, can someone tell me that how can it be carried out? If I want to send data from parent to child and vice versa, how it could be done?
Using props in case of parent to child, and using $emit in case of child to parent, setting some event.
Okay, even. And okay, let's say you are emitting an event from child to parent. So how do you basically catch that event?
So it has some custom event name, and we perform some action whenever the change occurs on
at
that
what
event.
level that event needs to be called?
That at the top level, parent level.
Correct.
It is
Yeah.
to be
Where
handled
that
at the
event
parent
has
level.
been emitted out at that level. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I hope this cycle is clear. So we'll move on. I'll create a new project. Okay, I'll create certain files here. I guess these two files should suffice as of now. Just give me a minute. Yeah, I'm back. Okay. So I have just created two files here. I'll write this, and after that, I need to write the view CDNs. I think we don't need routers. We just need view and Vuex. Let's change the title to products. Pasting it in a different file. Okay, so similarly, I'll quickly create a view object here. I don't want a name for it right now. Let's say the element it will be associated with is app, or say demo. Does it need to have its own state? maybe we'll see needed. Methods computed if needed. I don't think we'll require all of this, but I'm just creating it here to create a basic structure. Watchers I definitely don't need here, so I'll just leave them. Okay. So let's say I have a variable which shows that the count of products, and the value of it is of course 0 initially, and I want this value to appear here. So I will first have to create a outer element or a root element whose ID should be demo, and inside that I would like to show a message that total number of that's in the cart. So I can simply show that count what it was, count of products. Okay, so do you think if I run this file, I would be able to get this number on my screen? That is 0. It's a simple view application. I have not done anything fancy as of now. Okay, there are two things. Okay. So I'll just open it here. So it is still saying that count of products is not being rendering the way it is expected to be. Can someone tell me what's the issue?
So I think you are using that view 2.0.0. I think if you do 2.2.0, it will work. Version.
Okay. Okay, I guess no one else noticed that I am using state here. It should have been data.
Mutations and actions.
I'm creating a view object. I'm not creating a store object here.
Okay. Yes.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, clear.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Okay. So if I'll reload this, it should be visible. Okay, no, there is still a problem. Okay, here demo data is count of products. Okay, can someone tell me what else is the issue?
I think you need to mount the app.
Okay, so the problem is that we have created these two files, index.html and index.js, but there is no mapping between these two. How this index.js file will get to know that this demo element belongs to DOM that is created in this index.html. So of course, we need to embed this script in this HTML file. Okay, is there anything else that could happen?
No, it will solve problem.
Okay, hope so. Yeah, it does work. Okay, so of course, this was quite simple. We have been doing this all along. Now, what I'm going to do is I am going to shift this count of products value to where? To my Vuex store. So can someone tell me that how can I create a store or instead a store object? Which class is required? Like for view, we use this view class. In the same way, which class is required for creating a object of a store? So it is Vuex dot store. All right. That seems to be okay. After that, what will I do is, so now this will of course require state, okay? This will require state, not data.
So we can use create store as well. No?
Sorry,
Create store as
to
well.
do it in view 3. Okay, what else? State. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a skeleton that what all things can come in a Vuex store. So I'll just go to view documentation and I'll show you. So these are the things. These 4 things, state, getters, mutations, and actions. So all of these things can come. I have already created state. After that, I create getters. After that, let's create mutations. And then actions. Okay, I'll go and check if there is any spelling issue. This seems to be fine. Okay, so I have added all of the 4 things that come under the skeleton of views X store. So state, getters, mutations, and actions. So as we have already seen the flow, how the actual flow looks like. The entry point in the Vuex store, what it should be from a user's perspective. If you want to change a state, what should be the entry point in a Vuex store?
The root.
Sorry.
Root base URL.
No, means which component should get triggered. Let's say you are a user, you want to click somewhere, and in response to that click, you want to change certain state of your store. So what you would want, the response of that click should be. So that click, in an ideal way, should trigger an action. That action should in turn trigger a mutation, and that mutation finally should change the state in the way it is required. So can someone tell me that what is getters used for?
To get the state of the store.
Okay. Would anyone of you like to compare this, getters with okay, let's say with the computed properties in view? Do you think that they both can be compared? Getters in a store and computed properties in view. What do you think? Are there any similarities or there are too many differences? Anyone?
I think computed triggers the update in the view, but I don't think getter will do that. So
Okay.
if any value changes, the computed will trigger the related data in the mods in the view.
Correct. Yes.
But the getters will not do that.
Okay, so if I talk about the basic purpose of using a computed property, I guess that should be an easy question for you to answer for everyone. Would anyone like to answer this question? What are computed properties used for? So computed properties are
dynamic changes.
So whatever we define under computer properties, we can use it like a property. We are not needed to handle it separately.
You can treat all of the things that are defined in a computed property as even a variable.
As a variable.
And
We
a
are
data
not
variable.
needed to handle it here.
Right.
Like
So basically the purpose for which we use them is to get some derived state of some data that is defined in a view object. So let's say if there is a already a variable here, let's say count of products, and I define one computed property, say test, and what I want that test computed property to return is to basically return me that the modulo division of this variable by 2. This is what I want my computed property to return. The same thing is with the getters in this Vuex store as well. The purpose we will be using it for is the same. That is, if we want to, get some derived state of the variables that are defined in the state object. So this is what we are going to be using it for precisely. But of course, the difference is that the computed properties, they used to be invoked automatically. Whenever there is a change in the reactive properties on which it belongs or on which it depends. But in case of getters, they just are, read-only kind of thing. That means you will have to invoke them again and again in order to get the new value. Even if the state changes, you will have to invoke these getters again in order to get the new value. Right? This is not going to be invoked automatically for you, just like the computed properties. Is it okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so now, like I said, what I want to do is I want to change or I want to shift this variable. I'll comment it out here. I want to shift it here in my store. So I'll simply keep it here. Right now, I'll simply use it after that, once we are able to integrate this Vuex store in our application, after that, I'll create a getter property in order to fetch this state or this count of products variable value. We'll see that. Okay. Now, what I have done is I have simply pasted it in the state object. Can someone tell me that how I am supposed to access this? How can I access this value or this variable, that is count of products? Let's say I want to access this I want to define a complete property here. And here, instead of directly calling this, I want to call a completed property. Let's say, return. Let's not say return or so. This is a short for return underscore count, and I want to create this as a completed property in my view object. This is supposed to be a yeah. So please tell me that what shall I write here so that I should be able to get the value from this store.
So store dot state dot count of products.
Okay. So according to you, what should I do here?
It's dollar. I'm not able to recall. Store dot state dot the variable name.
Okay, variable name is what? It is count of products. Is that okay?
I think it is bis.$store.
Okay, we'll come on that. So if I'll reload this, what I'm getting here is RET count. That means this completed property is not returning what we want it to. Or maybe let me just check again. This right count. Just that count. Yeah. Let me see if it is even returning what we want it to. Let me just try to return 7. Wait, there seems to be an issue. Okay. One second. Guess I missed that. few methods. Is there a mistake that we are causing? Index.html has nothing.
I think sir, rate count should be in data object.
Sorry.
So that rate count should be in data object. I think then only it will be rendered.
Okay, no, I want it to be a computed property. So if I just comment this, let me see if this works. Still giving an error. That count is not defined on the instance. So if I make it up, okay, now it is working here. So was there an issue with the store?
So in view we must mention store, no?
Sorry.
Instead of data. View component. After
Yeah,
L
view
there
component.
should be. After L there should be store, no?
Sorry, I'm not
colon,
getting.
line number 22. We have written data colon.
Yeah.
There should be store to be called inside view.
No, that we can do, but what is the issue? Like creating an independent object. Maybe let me see. Just a minute, let me check. Okay, I have stopped sharing my screen. Just a minute. The screen should be visible now. Okay, store.subscribe. Okay, I'll come on to that. But okay, we actually. Oh, all right. So since we are creating an object, so we should be using this new keyword. I guess we were missing using that. It should be a. Yeah, all right. That was the issue. Okay. So let us come back, and this return is working fine. So what will I do is I'll say store.state.count of products. Yeah, this is what we discussed. Okay. So if I'll refresh this, again I'm getting an error that the store is not defined. So why does it happening? So store.state.count of products, it is not recognizing it. Can someone tell me why?
That should be changed to this dot dollar store.
Okay. So what should be changed?
This dot dollar store dot state.
This dot dollar store dot state. So this should work, right?
I think so.
Okay, let me tell you that this will also not work.
Okay.
So I am also showing you the console, or basically the logs that this application is generating, so that you can even try figuring out that what all errors are. So right now the error is that cannot read property of undefined reading state. That means what it is saying is that this dot store is returning undefined. Now, what could be the possible reasons for this to be returning a value of undefined?
Undefined means it's not able to
Sir,
access
we
it.
need, sir, we need to write store in this view object.
Exactly. So what we have done is we have created a Vuex store object, but we have not, told our view application that we already have created a store for it. So we have to bind both of those, right? So what will I do is I'll do store. Okay, well, you can even use a shortcut just like you do for router. This will also work. So now it should work fine without any error.
Not
Now it is showing that store is not defined. Is it C?
So you have not assigned the Vuex object to store.
Sorry, I didn't get it.
You have not initialized the store variable.
so const store is equal to new vx dot store. I think that will solve the issue in line number 2.
Store is not defined. Okay, all right, got it.
In line number 2.
Well, not where. Okay,
const
sorry,
store.
I forgot to initialize it. The variable. So since we are using store here, that means there must be a variable named store. Okay, so now we are getting 0 here. Now, if I will change it to store.state.count of products, what do you think? What should it give us? Should it give us 0, or should it generate an error, or what do you think?
It will not render the value.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
It would still render.
Okay.
It's still rendering it as 0. Or even if I'll change the value, so let's say I'll make it 10. So the value will also get updated. See, it became 10. So what does this mean is that I can use this dot store as well. I can use store as well. What do you think? What should be the ideal choice and why? Can anyone answer? See, we used both of the syntaxes. Let me just write both of them here. The first is this dot store dot state dot variable. The other one is store dot state dot variable. We see that we are able to get the output from both of these syntaxes. So which one should we use?
Sir, the state is maintained centrally, so there is
Yes.
no need to write this dot dollar. I think we can go with the second option.
Okay. So,
What is
there
it?
is one, there is basically a particular reason that we are using this UXS. We have already discussed that we want everything to be logged in what? In DevTools, so that we can trace back what the error was, or what the root cause of the error. Right? So if you are saying that you just want to use store.state.variable, what you are doing is you're not bringing in the functionalities that this Vuex offers. What you are doing is you are simply using it as a JavaScript object. So if you will look at, just from JavaScript point of view, what is store? Store is simply an object, right, of this class. And what you are doing is you are defining certain properties in it, state, getters, and all. And what you are doing is you are saying that store.state.variable. So you are simply, trying to access it in the JavaScript fashion, just the way you use a JavaScript object. So it won't be able to help you that, which component committed that mutation, or what was the previous state that got changed to something else. So you won't be able to trace back these things.
Okay.
So that is the reason that you should always be using what? This dot store.
This dot dot.
Because this will help you in tracing back all of these things. Okay, now that we are able to return this thing. Similarly, now I'll simply change it to what? I'll put it in the getters. Okay, so what will I do is I'll say return store count. Okay, I guess this name is okay. And here, what will I do is I'll simply say, okay, so can someone tell me that if I want to return this value, what shall I write here? How the function body or the declaration should look like? What shall I write here so that I can access this value that is defined in this state object? So previously, what I was doing is I created a component property through which I accessed. Okay, let me just change it to this dot. So I was using it using this dot store variable. Now I am supposed to access this using a getter property.
Dot
Sorry.
getters.
Sorry.
This dot dollar store dot getters instead of state.
Are you sure?
We can. I'm not sure, but I'm thinking. We may go.
This dot store should not be used inside a store.
Okay.
This is meant to be used for components that you are creating in your Vue application.
So we getters dot then.
This will be getters dot. Okay. The very first thing is that I need to let this function know that I'm going to access certain things inside the body of this function. So what I'm giving this function as a parameter is I'm giving it a parameter called state. Now, of course, this state is just a name, right? It can be anything else. But what this state represents is this state. Right? Now it becomes easier for me. What I'm going to write here is I'm going to say return dot state dot. Sorry, was someone saying something?
Yes, state dot count of products now.
Okay, yeah. I would simply say this.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm going to get this property through this getter. Now, of course, the actual purpose of using getters, we just discussed in the beginning, that just like component properties, if you want to return a derived state. Right now, I'm returning it as it is, but let's say you want to multiply it with 10, then divide it by 2, and then return the final result. Then in that case, these getters could be of more use. So now, previously, I was simply using this dot store dot state dot count of products. Now I want to make use of getters. So how should I replace? Of course, I need to replace this state dot count of products. What should I write here? This dot store variable would remain the same.
Getters.
You will write here getters. Dot. What is the property name? Property name is this return store count. Return store count. So do you think we should be able to get what we want to?
Yes.
So this red count is what? This is the completed property inside a Vue object. What this is returning us is this is calling a getter. Getter name return store count. Return store count is returning what? It is returning a state of a variable called count of. So we should be able to get this. So now we are able to, okay, it was 10. Yeah, I changed it to 10. So we are also able to get it or access it using getters. So we saw how to access it directly using state, and of course, how to access it by creating getters. So of course, the preferred way should be getters, because many a times we would be required to return a derived state and not the complete. If you want to simply return whatever the value it is storing in the state, you don't even need to create getters for it. You could directly return that, or you could directly access that. You don't need to return. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a list of products. So I'm going to use that list of products so that I can display them on my web page. So I would say list of products. So as the name suggests, this is going to be an array, and this array will have certain objects in it, multiple objects. We'll define how these objects look like. Let's say 4 objects initially, or even 3, but okay, I have created that. So let's keep it 4. All right. So what each of these object is going to have is, let's say they are going to have a, okay, let's say ID 1, name, okay, let's say pen, and let's say price is going to be 10. Similarly, the next item in the list is, say, having ID 2, whose name is say notebook, and price is 50. Similarly, this is going to have ID this, name, and price. Okay. ID 4. Name is going to be something. Price is going to be something. Okay. So let's quickly assign them the names: pen, notebook, let's say textbook, whose price is going to be, let's say, 250. The other thing you can think of, okay, let's say scale or instead geometry. So the price is going to be okay. So now what I have done is I have simply created a list of products. Each of that product is basically an object. It can be interpreted as an object, and that object has 3 properties. One is ID, other one is name, and the last one is price. Okay. Now, if I want to show the list of these products on my web page, so my web page looks quite simple as of now. It just shows this message called total number of products in the cart, 10. So whatever the value that is here. Okay, so of course I need to make this change in my HTML, but instead what I want is I want to create a separate component, right, for each of this. So what I would do here is I would create a component. No, let's say the name of the component can be product. Inside product list, and what all things I'm going to have here, data. We'll see if it is needed. Template. So this is going to be crucial for us.
So data will be function inside component.
Okay. All right. I wanted to come to that. Okay. Since you have already pointed out, I'll change it. Okay, so how do we want the list of this product to appear on this component? Can someone tell me? I have these 4 products right now, but maybe tomorrow or day after tomorrow, I can have a list of 100 products. So basically, how can I maintain this dynamicity? That means it depends on this list. If this list is going to have 4 products today, it will display 4. If this is going to have 100 products tomorrow, this should display 100. What can I do so that it can render all of the products? Let's say I'll create a heading here, say H2 list of products. Now after this H2, I want to render all of these. Can someone suggest me what could be done?
I'm not sure, but using V4.
Yeah, definitely. We can make use of V4 here. So what do you think? With what element I should use this V4?
With
Should I
list
use it
element,
with a div or
list? We can create one list.
okay? So basically, what I want is that each component or each product should should look like a component in itself, right? That means because right now I'm just trying to display their names, but thereafter I would have a button associated with each of those components, some text or some description that is written for each of those. So I want a box type of thing. So what would I do is I would instead have as div and inside this div you would say v4 equals to. So can someone tell me that what shall I write here inside this v4? Let's say product in, what shall I write here? Which variable we want to iterate over here?
List of products.
List
Correct.
of
It is
products.
what? It is list of products. List of products, that is fine. Now, even within that, what I want is, I want a div. Okay. Okay. Maybe I could do is, I could get a simple, or instead I can get it from Bootstrap. So I can use something. Okay, I can make use of card. Let's say this is looking good. Copy this and I paste it here. Okay, so this was a div. Put it here. So just to make the indentation correct.
Can you share that link of card
Yeah, sure.
that you're using?
Okay, so since I'm using that, so I'll also have to put that link in the CDN for using Bootstrap. So I'll use this and put it in my index. All right. So this is list of products, product and list of products. Now, what I'm going to show here is cart title. So instead of cart title, I could instead show what? Can someone tell me if I want to, let's say display the name of that particular product, what shall I write here?
Product dot name.
Correct. So since product is the variable through which we are iterating over this list, I could say product, which is going to represent one object at a time. And I can use dot operator in order to access a property that is defined inside the project. After that, we have this card subtitle. So maybe we can say price, and then we can say that the product dot price is going to be shown. P, a small description of that. Maybe I'll just omit it. I don't need it right now. And then there are two anchor tags. So instead of having anchor tags, maybe I could have a button. Not anything fancy. a button which says that add item, maybe something like that, or maybe +1, anything, whatever you would like to. Okay. And after that, we can have of course methods, and we'll see that if we will require any method for this particular component. So if I open this HTML file in the browser, do you think that I should be able to see a list of products? Is there anything that we are missing here? We have also embedded the Bootstrap CDN link in our HTML page, so that should not be an issue. Let us see. Okay, so right now I'm not able to see anything on my web page. Can someone tell me why?
So we are trying to access the product list directly. It is
Yeah.
now part of the store. So getters, I think we shall handle that.
Okay, correct. So how shall we access this list of products?
So in getters, we need to create we need to first handle it like we handled it before, and then that can be done here.
Okay,
Feelings,
so that's a nice question. So instead, what we could do is we could even create a computed property here. And inside that computed property, we can say that get products, some kind of property. And what this is going to return us is return this dot store dot what? I could directly say store dot state dot list of products. I have not created any getter for that, so let's do that. Okay, I would simply do that, but you can also create getter for it if needed. State dot list of products. Okay, now I have this component property in place. So I would like to replace this one with my component property, that is get products. Okay, now I have it in place as well. Do you think it will work now?
sure.
Okay, it would still not work. See, there's nothing. Yes, can anybody tell me what is the issue?
Sir, can you show HTML?
Okay, yeah.
We have not used product list.
Exactly.
Yes.
So we have created this component here, but we have not put this component on a main HTML page to get it rendered. So I will have to do that. So product list. What going? Okay. Now I expect it to work, but let's see if there are any errors. All right. So we are able to see this, and this is also giving us nice cards. However, this button doesn't seem good. Why is it so?
Class to be added.
Maybe what class can we have here? So since we are using Bootstrap,
Button primary.
we can have button. Which color do we want it to be?
Primary blue.
Will blue be okay? Anyways, yeah. Okay, where does this come from? I don't.
And tag of button.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, great. Yeah. So now this looks like something nice. So we have a list of products here. Pen, price, notebook. What is this? Textbook, and then we have this geometry. Now, let's say I decide to add one more product in this list, or let's say decide to remove one product. But right now, let us try to add a new product. So ID is going to be 5. Name is going to be, let's say, pencil, and price is going to be 5. So I expect that this component should automatically get added on my web page the moment I make changes to what to my list. So if I refresh this, so I'm able to see this pencil component or this pencil product on my pages. Okay, of course there is a button called add item, but this doesn't seem to be good. So now what I want is I want to first initialize it back to 0, so that firstly it shows that there are no products in my cart. And whenever I click on add item here, so what should it do is it should trigger something, and that should in return change the state, and of course it should display the updated state or the updated value of this variable here. So we would like to make it happen. Can someone tell me what should we do? Since we are going to click on this button, of course we will need to add an event here. So can someone tell me what else can be done after adding an event?
You have to handle it, no? Add the right click.
Yeah, correct. We need to. So let's say I basically we can use Vion as well, or you can directly use @. That is fine. There is one method that I'm going to define inside this this component. Let's say increment. Okay, and this increment I am going to define it inside the methods function. Okay, now can someone tell me what should I do inside this function? So that firstly I would like to make it 0 again. Now what should I do here so that clicking on this button should increase that variable, that is total number of products or count of products, by 1. That means if I
modify
click
the store.
any of, yeah, sorry.
Oh.
Sorry, I interrupted in between. Can you please again repeat?
We can modify the store variable value.
How should we do that?
By incrementing it by a +1 using this $store
Okay.
dot
All right.
state.
We can definitely do that. But if you remember that in the beginning of this session itself, we discussed that there is basically one flow or one cycle that we should be following ideally. That means any changes to state should be made via what?
Mutations.
Should be made via mutations, definitely. So that means we need to have something in this mutation that should be changing this state. Okay, let's say I do something. I say, increment count, and I create a function. Can someone tell me if this function is going to take any argument?
State.
Yeah, it should be. So it will take its state, and what we would do here is we would say that state dot count of products plus equals to 1. Okay, whatever the previous value was, we will just increment it by 1. Now this is okay. This is fine. So we have created a mutation here, increment underscore count. Now the issue is that how do we invoke that mutation from this method? Can someone tell me how can it be done? Any ideas? So of course we were using that this $store variable in order to access whatever we want to from a Vuex store. Similarly, we would be doing that here as well, this .store. But this time we are not interested in a state. We are not interested in a getter property. What we're interested in is a mutation. So if we want to invoke a mutation, what we shall do is we shall commit the mutation, right? Even if we will, get back to that workflow. So what that picture tells us is, what that picture tells us is that the mutations should be committed. So what we would do here is we would say commit. And inside this commit, we have to pass the name of the mutation that we want to commit. And the name of that mutation is what? It is increment count. This function is not accepting any parameter, right? The state is something that is passed implicitly. You don't need to provide it explicitly while invoking this. If you want to pass something, of course, that those parameters could be created here, but right now there is nothing. So it is going to be what? Increment count. So let us just try to understand that what is going to happen when the user clicks on this button that has the text add item. The moment user clicks this button, this event will get triggered, that is click event, and this is going to invoke a method that is defined in this component itself, product list, that is increment. This increment, what does this do is this commits a mutation from a store whose name is increment count. So we'll go back here, increment count, and what we'll see here is that this is going to update the count of products variable by 1. Correct? Now, if this is updated, we want this value to be reflected here as well. Okay, here. Now, what is this return count? This return count is basically a computed property in a view object. And as we know that a computed property will automatically get updated whenever the reactive dependency changes, right? So do you think that this reactive dependency will change? Okay, let us find out.
Yes, sir.
I'll go back here. I'll refresh this. Right now it is showing me 0. If I click on add item, I should see, this value should change. So the moment I clicked on it, I see that this value changed. It became 1 from 0. But if I click on this button again, do you think it would still work? Let me show you the code once again. If I click on that button again, do you think that the value would still increment?
Yes, it should.
Yes, sir. It
It
should.
will increment. There is no issue. Doesn't matter how many times I click it, it is always going to make an increment of this value. Okay. Now, this, doesn't look very user friendly. I'm not talking in terms of aesthetics. I'm just, talking in terms of how a user would want to, add items in their cart. So right now we have this button called add item. Clicking on it is going to make an increment of 1 in the total number of products in your cart. Let's say if user wants to add 100 similar products in his cart or her cart. So the user is supposed to click on this button 100 times, right? So do you think that the user would really find it easy to add 100 similar products in the cart?
No.
No. So what we could instead do here is we can have basically a drop-down menu or even a input text box that is going to accept a number from the user, and the moment user clicks on this button, the number that is entered inside that input text box or selected in the drop down, that number of products should automatically get added in your cart.
Yes.
So let us try to do that. Just before this button, let's create an input, and we can even have a drop down, but let's say input of type number. Should be fine. All right. But since user is going to enter something and we want to catch that value whenever the user clicks on this add item button. So that means we need to catch the value that is entered in this input text box. So can someone suggest me some ways through which I can do that? Remember, this is, yeah, sorry, vbind.
Vbind, yes.
Are you sure that vbind would work here? Vbind is used for one-way data binding.
V module.
We should use
V
V model
model.
here.
V model.
What would I do is, let's say I create a variable here. What should I, or instead, is there any other way that I could think of? Okay, let's create that variable anyways. Let's keep it simple. Let's create a count. 0 as of now. Model. Now, can someone tell me that what changes shall we make in this increment function definition here?
This count will be added now.
Sorry.
This whatever the count value will come, that is to be added.
Yeah. So basically, what shall we do with that value? Where shall we access that, or where shall we pass that?
That is to be passed in where we are doing addition. That is in mutations. So we are using this in count, and that is in mutations. So what is to be done?
So
We are
see,
writing state
whenever
dot
we are
count of product.
whenever we are committing this mutation, we would pass one data along with committing this mutation, and the data is going to be what? This is going to be this dot.
This dot in the name count.
Right? This is the value that user has entered in this input text box. And since we are passing one value here, so this should also be interested in getting that value. And instead of 1, we should say count here, right? Okay. So now if I'll refresh this page, I am able to see this, number box here. So let's say I make it 7 and I click on add item. So it makes it, 7 in the cart. Let's say I make it 9 this time. There is one problem that we are going to, see just next to that. If I click on add item here, the problem is that, okay, one second. It says 0711. Looks like it is doing string addition.
Typecasting.
Okay, so let us say that we want the value that this B model is going to return should be a number. So should be a number. Refresh this. So the moment I'll click on it, it should give us 5. Next time it should give us 8 plus 5, 13. Yeah, that is fine. Okay, now I hope all of you would have observed the issue that we are facing here. Can someone tell me what is it?
Simultaneously, the value is changing for all items.
Exactly. So the moment I make the change here, let's say I write 9, so it is automatically, getting updated in all other input text boxes. That should not be the case. So any suggestions through which we can, make those changes here? That means we cannot make a single variable that is count. Just give me a minute. Hello, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry. Was a pause. Okay, so what were we doing?
So we wanted to add a separate count.
Okay, all right. So we don't want this to happen. That means if I update a value in one text box, it should not get reflected in others. So yeah, any suggestions for that? Right now we are using a single count variable. This should not happen. So instead, what we should do is we should instead use an array, right? But what should we do inside this array? So the V model should not be corresponding to count. It should be to, let's say, count and that index product dot id. So product dot id is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So what it is going to do here is, so count at index 0, it is going to store a particular value. Similarly, at index 1, a different value would be stored. And similarly, if there are 5 products, so there will be 5 index that would be created, right? 0, 1, 2, 3. And each of those index will be having their own values. So that's why the change that or the new value that you will write inside the text input box, that won't get reflected in others. Let us see if this is working out. So I'll make it 5. Okay, it is pending 0, 5, 7.
Now that count should be based on ID. No?
Oh, okay. So we should be changing this here. So can someone tell me what shall I pass here?
It's the product ID.
Are you sure? Product.id is just the index of the date, but we don't want to pass the index. What we want to pass is the value that is stored at that index. Any ideas, anyone? So let me try to explain it this way. So count is basically an array. You can understand it as an array. There are elements inside this array. Let's say there is a value, say 50, there is 60, there is 45, there is 22, there is 60 or 65. We want to access these values, but what this product.id is going to offer us, it is basically going to tell us that what is the index. That means the index of this value is 0, it is 1, it is 2, it is 3, and similarly 4.
So if I write count of 0, that will handle the first value at index 0.
Okay, so this dot count is not a first value, it is basically the entire array, right? Because count is what? It is an array here. And if you want to access a value that is stored at a particular index, what you need to pass is, you need to pass that index. So what you would do is, you would say product.id as an index. Are you getting my point?
Yes.
I said that this.count is basically an array, and I want to access a value that is stored at a particular index. That index is defined by this ID. If this ID is coming from product, this product is coming from the text. Okay, now I have already saved it. I'll again refresh and see if this works. So I'll make it 4. So it is not working out. Let me see what is the issue. So increment count, this dot count.
So in addition also.
And this is going to mutation. So
In function, we have to pass this parameter, right? Product.id.
Yes.
all right, yeah, correct. That is correct. So we basically need to increment, and we need to pass that product.id here. So that is going to be what? Of course, we cannot directly use product.id here. So we would pass this here, and we would receive it as, let's say, ID. and we will pass that ID as this. Okay. All right, let's see. So I'll refresh this and yeah, this is working now. So the changes that you are making in one text input box, those are not getting reflected at other places. Just getting edited.
So one doubt.
Yeah.
Can't we just use the store variable directly in the template?
Like so what you are saying is that instead of this return count, you want to use this dot store, something like that.
Yes, sir.
Maybe let us see. It looks like you can't. Okay, so count of products. It looks like okay, it is still working. The value is 0, right? Value is 0. And if I make changes, yeah, it still works. Okay, great, nice. This could be used as well, but I would say that you should not be doing it. I don't like this syntax at all. So it's better if we stick to what we were doing before. Okay. All right. So right, we created this products page. All of the products are here. Input box is here. Add items here. If you want, you can also create remove item. You could either have a different text input box for remove item button, or you could simply say that remove item is going to just detect one product at a time. All right.
Separate button.
Sorry.
Separate button for delete.
Yeah, means like I have add item, you can have one more button called remove item. So
Yeah.
you can implement functionality for that button, whatever you want it to be. Okay, now if I'll ask you that what we are doing right now is we are simply showing that what are the total number of products in a cart. Now I also want to show the price of this cart. Can someone tell me how can I compute the price of the product?
So product dot price into the value in this text box.
Okay, let's say in the HTML I am writing total amount, and this is, let's say, return amount. I'm going to have this as a computed property here. Function and return this dot. Let's say I'm going to have something in the store dot amount. I'll create it in the store, that is amount. It will also be initialized with 0. But now, of course, we will also need a mutation in order to take care of that. So this is going to say change what? Change amount, something like that. Function state. All right. So now, can someone tell me that how can I implement this total amount functionality?
Like in method, one more method to be declared in the method section.
Okay, one more method. What would you do with that?
Or with,
Okay, let's say I declare one more method. Say this is going to something like cost update. Okay. Function. Yeah. What shall I write inside it?
This dot dollar dot store, sorry, this dot dollar store commit, and instead of increment count, that will be the variable change underscore amount in notations. That will be
Let's
assigned.
say I'll just copy it here. This is going to be change amount. Is there anything else that you need to pass to this function as your data?
Yes, we need to pass because we will be able to access the price. We need to pass the count. That
Okay, we need to pass what?
Count.
Okay.
The value that is in the
Yeah,
box,
but
input box.
but we don't have the access to this ID here.
Yes. So we need to pass ID as well as we pass in increment.
So how are you going to invoke this function cost update from your HTML?
We need to have, to invoke, we need to have a button. We need to trigger it. Some event should be there.
Okay, why can't we have this line in this function itself? Right
Yeah,
here
it's
itself.
possible. Yes, possible.
Okay.
So instead of writing this cost update, you can remove and it will send we can pass.
Okay, let's say we are saying that we are passing what? We are passing the value, right? Do you think that we need anything else?
So we also need the price of the.
Exactly. We also need the price.
So do we need to pass price because price is part of the store itself in notation?
The price is part of the store itself, but how do you know that? Let's say you wrote 4 in one input box and you clicked on add item. How do you know that that value 4 is coming from which product?
Okay, so you want to pass for that product itself. Okay.
So just like we are passing product.id here, in the same way, can we pass price here?
Price. Yes, product.price.
So product.price here. So that means they should be receiving the price as well. So here, what we are passing is, this is passing what? This is just passing the count, right? But along with that, what we want to pass is, we also want to pass the price, right? Now, change amount, it is going to accept 2 parameters. One is going to be, say count, but let's say count, I guess only its amount. Okay, count and price, right? So now what shall I write here? So I can directly say state dot amount equals to, or instead plus equals to
The product of price and count.
Is that okay? Count into price.
Should work.
Okay, let me just double check. We are passing product ID and product price. We are committing a mutation with the value. Okay, let's see. 3. So it says NAN here. Product ID, product price. You probably need to convert them both to number. Okay, it is still showing as NAN.
Sir, I have one doubt.
Yeah.
In that mutations, those are the functions. Why we are not writing return over there?
Sorry, can you repeat?
If you go to that mutations part, if you scroll, yes, these are the function, increment count,
Yeah.
and the change amount is a function. So we are not using return statement here. Is it not needed? In line number 44 and 48.
Line number 44. No.
And
Wow.
48.
Why do you need return statement? You are not directly using it in your HTML.
Okay. No, here in view only we are doing through the computation mutations. So mutations are not needed to return the value, they are directly accessible.
I'm not able to understand what you are saying. In Vue, we don't have any such thing called mutation. Are you trying to refer to computed
No.
properties?
No, any function that we write, we generally use a return statement over there in order to return the value. Why that is
Yeah,
not
of course, but
applicable
what
in
would you
case
do?
of mutations, I wanted to know. In case of
Well, maybe you
mutations,
can
why
write
it is
return
not.
statement, but I don't think that there is any purpose of doing that. Maybe you could say return 7, but I don't think this is going to impact. Let's say if I'll refresh this. I don't think that this is going to make any difference. Like, it will still remain the same, but just the matter is that how do you want to utilize that return value? You are simply calling this function. You are not waiting or catching its return value. So that's why.
The mutation, whatever function we write, it's simply to update the value. It's not
Correct.
returning
Mutation
to
is
any
used for
value.
updating a certain state. Correct.
Okay.
Okay. So the issue that we are right now having here is that this ID and price. So this dot count ID, I hope it is what? Okay, let me see one thing. Console.log. I would print ID, type of ID, price, type of price. Okay. So this increment is going to be invoked when you click on that button. Okay. Refresh it. Five, add item, 5. So one number, 10 number. The issue is tag div has no matching end tag. Okay, is there an issue with that? So if we talk about this div, this is closed here. This div is closed here. This is closed here. This is closed here.
So the last div is not closed.
The last one. Which one?
So the last div does not have the slash.
Oh, okay, here. Let's say I enter 4 here. Still says NAN. And what we are showing there, we are showing return amount. Return amount is a computed property. That is .store.amount. Amount is 0 here. And you call this function. So you are changing this amount to.
So it should be this dot dollar dot store dot state dot amount, right?
Sorry, it should be.
In return amount,
Yeah, what it should be.
state dot amount.
What I have written. It's same, right?
Okay, sorry.
It's
This dot store dot state dot amount. It is giving us NAN. For the first time, it is okay. Okay, let me see. If I make it state dot amount equals to 67. Yeah, it worked. So the issue is with this statement. state dot amount. Sorry, 8. Okay, it is still giving NaN. Why is it so? Let's see. So amount is, okay, let me refresh it. The amount was 0 when this function was invoked. Okay. Okay, so what does this increment count does? This increment count just adds up what? Count of products, which has nothing to do, I guess, at least here.
So can we print the type of count and price
Yes.
inside it?
Price. Now there was one more place where we were printing it. Okay, so let's say 4 here is 4 number and it is undefined. That is the issue. So the value of this price is going as undefined. To change amount. Change amount. This dot count ID. Then price. Here I guess we were able to see both the values.
So maybe we have to pass a parameter in an object type.
The number and number. All right, let's try to do so. Okay, maybe this accepts just one parameter. Should be possible. Let's say quant, that is quantity. This is price. Here we are going to say obj and obj dot one. Obj dot price. Similarly, we'll change it here. One. Sorry, it should be obj dot one only. Should be obj dot price. Obj dot price. Okay. Let's see if it works. Price. Yeah, it worked. Okay, I guess so that accepts only one argument. So we need to pass multiple values in the form of an object or an array if needed. All right, so if I'll refresh this and say that I have 5 products of pen and I click on add item. So I have 5 products in my cart, the total amount is 50. Similarly, I have 2 textbooks. So the total should be 7 and it should be 200. Wait, should be plus equals to 550. Total amount became 170. What is happening?
So you are adding 67, that's why.
Oh, okay. 5 here, this 50, and let's say 2 textbook. So 500 should come from there. So 550. All right, yeah. So this is how we can display total amount and of course the total number of products in the cart. So yeah, there is one thing that is to be kept in mind that we can only pass one parameter to a mutation. So yeah, we need to pass multiple values either as an array or an object. Now there is one more thing that I quickly want to do here is that right now what we have done is we have this static list of products, right? We have defined it here in the list of products. Now let's say what happens if you want to fetch it from the database. How would you do that? Can someone suggest me? How could it be done? Yes, anyone?
No idea, sir.
Okay, so right now, of course, I don't want to create a database, but what I do is I'll do a quick and easier thing or a simpler thing instead. I'll let's say create a JSON file. Let's say data.json, abc.json, anything, whatever you want, and I'll paste this list in the JSON file. Just consider that this JSON file is a database. Okay, then cut it here. I'll paste it. The issue with that is, okay, so they all should be double quoted strings. If you do that. Okay, meanwhile, can someone tell me that how shall I, fetch the data from this JSON file and can use it in my application? Any ideas? I hope all of you have already, discussed about fetch APIs.
Yes, yes.
Using
Start
fetch
discussions.
Yeah.
So do you think that we can fetch this data considering this to be an API call? Like I said that assume that this is your database and you want to fetch the list of products that is available in your database. Right now, I just want to keep it simpler. So I do not have any API endpoint created. So I'm just using it in a JSON file. Yeah. So can someone tell me?
So there we use a Flask-based server and given URL for that one. So here it will be the same localhost, same port number. Is it?
Okay, let's say I started a server and I, serving this data.json file as. But how do I retrieve the content from that JSON file and I put it in this variable that is list of product variable? How do I do this?
Function that is fetch function with init parameters.
Where shall I
That is-
write that fetch API call?
That should be in computed.
Okay. That means that component
Mounted,
property
sorry.
needs to be
Not
invoked.
in that should be in mounted.
Exactly. So that should be in one of the life cycle, right? Why?
Yes.
Because we want this fetch API call to happen as soon as this application is loaded, right?
Yes.
So we can either use created, we can use mounted. I would use mounted here.
Within component you are writing, sir.
Okay, is it in component?
Yeah.
Okay, mount. Let's say there is one. No function. Now, can someone tell me what shall I write here? Do you think we need to declare this function as async? Maybe, or may not be. It is okay, fine. So what we'll do is we will simply say fetch what? Fetch data from this JSON file, right? Do what? After this fetch call, this will of course resolve into a what? Into a response object. Then what we will do from that response object is we will extract the JSON, or we'll try to convert the data into the JSON. After that, once the data is converted into JSON, what we'll do with the data is we'll first print the data on the console. And after that, what shall we do? We shall assign whatever data that we have gotten. We know that we are going to receive what? We are going to receive an array of objects, right? Because this is what we have put in a JSON file. So we already know. So what we are going to do is we will say this dot store dot state dot list of products, I guess. And we are just going to assign it to D.
Data.
Or instead, let us keep it commented out, and let's see that what do we get on the console. Okay. So let's say refresh this. There is nothing here. Can someone tell me why? I'll show you the console as well. So yeah, can someone tell me what happened?
So the port number should be given.
Yeah, so what is happening is that seems like you are trying to access it using file URL. So it is saying that the CORS policy has blocked this and this. What can you do? What can you think of right now? Can you create a server?
So can't we give the local IP 127.0.0.1?
Yeah, of course you need to create a server for that, right?
Yeah.
How do you create that server?
We can use live server in VS Code.
Yeah, so since we are using VS Code, we can even use the live server extension. Let's say I use it. So I go here, and what happened? Okay, it says that failed to load resource. Well, that doesn't matter. What we want is we want this result that has come here, right? Array. And if you will expand this array, or instead to make it more clear, we should write here is data and then this, so that we can understand, okay, that this is the. So this is data, and this is an object, an array of 5 objects. And each of that object will have 3 attributes: ID, name, and price. Now that we have already seen this, that what we are getting in return is this, an array of objects. So now we can uncomment this statement, and we should be able to see the list of products on our web pages. Right? So we are able to see this. Since we are using live server extension, I don't need to reload it. Whatever changes I'll make here, once I'll save it, automatically the page will get reloaded. Right? So if I'll write 3 here, would say 3 and 30. I would write 6 here, and accordingly it is going to update it. Right? What I have done for simplicity right now is use the JSON file and fetch the content from there. And I hope you should be very well able to convert this data.json file contents into a database and then make up API through which you can fetch the data in the required. Right. What you could have is you could probably have a model named products, and you can have an endpoint in your API that basically gives you or returns a list of that products that are available in your database. You can use Marshall with or Marshmallow for the serialization purpose. I guess that should not be an issue. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm pretty much done with what I intended to cover for this session. We have seen that what states, getters, mutations, and actions are. Or what you could even do is, if you want to make this API call in the actions, you could even do that as well. But right now we are doing it in the mounted, so that's completely fine. If you want to make any API calls, in the mid of your application flow, then you should do it in actions, of course. Because you cannot have the mutations or the functions defined inside mutations object, behave like asynchronous.
So will you please repeat that?
What I said is that if you want to, make some API calls in the mid of your application flow. Right now, what we are doing is we are just fetching the list of the products in the very beginning, whenever this page is getting loaded, right, on the user screen. Now, let's say what you want is, let's say you don't display the price here. You, let's say, have a button here says show price, and the user, when the user clicks on that show price button, what you have to do is you have to fetch the price of that product from the backend. Or let's say you have to fetch the number of quantities or the quantity or basically the stock of that product from the backend. So in that case, you would definitely be required to make an API call in order to fetch it from the backend. In that case, you can put that API call code in the actions. You can create one more function, just like we are doing in mutations. Let's say, get stock, something like that, and do it like this. Remember this actions, this is basically going to accept this context object, and this context can directly commit a mutation. So in case you want to commit a mutation from an action, what you could do is you could directly say context dot commit and whatever the name of that mutations. And in case it requires any parameter. Okay. Yeah, so this is how you can use actions as well. Yeah, so are there any questions?
So is it necessary to commit in actions?
So see, like we discussed, the ideal flow of a Vuex store is that a user should perform certain actions. Those actions should trigger these actions inside the Vuex store, and these actions should invoke some mutations, and those mutations in turn should alter the state. So in case you don't require anything to be done asynchronously, you are even okay with mutations as well. You don't even need to define actions. So actions are precisely for the purpose when you want to make API calls or do something that is asynchronous in nature, and any operation that is asynchronous, because the functions that you are writing inside mutations, they cannot be of asynchronous nature. So whatever you are going to do in the actions is ideally you should be committing mutations from the actions. Right now, I didn't make use of actions at all because I didn't make any API call in the mid of my application. I just made an API call in the beginning that I did in the created or that mounted.
Okay, sir, got it.
Yeah, is there any other question?
No, sir.
Okay, all right, great. I'll push this code to some repository as well, in case you require this text.html. So yeah, the activity that I would like to suggest all of you is that instead of having this data.json, have a database, have a API, have an API. That API can have a single endpoint if you just want to build this application. That endpoint should return the list of all of the products that are available currently. And of course, if you want to build on top of it, you can have as many as endpoints. But this is something that you must at least try. Having a basics of API and just have a single endpoint that should get you all of the products up. Okay, so in case there are no more questions, let me stop sharing my screen. Stop this server as well.
So we have to create database manually and use the file directly.
Sorry?
Will that be okay?
Sorry?
Manually creating a database using SQL and using that file directly, will that be okay?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, fine.
Okay. Sir.
Yeah, so yeah, if you want to build on top of it, what you can have is you can have a separate dashboard that can even be secured using a username or a password. So what can happen is that a seller who wants to publish his or her products on this page that we just saw, a seller can go there, can log in, and can enter a product as well, and create a new product that should get added into the database. And of course, whenever that API is going to return you the current available products in the database, so whenever it gets added, it should also be shown on the web page this way.
Yes, sir.
So this is just a basic example to understand that how the basic flow in Vuex works. Okay, let me know if you guys have any questions. Okay, so there seems to be no more questions. All right, so thank you all for joining in this session. So as you all know that this session was a compensatory session for the session that was supposed to happen on Saturday, but that got cancelled or instead rescheduled due to the OOP's exam schedule. So this was just a compensatory session, and tomorrow we are also going to have one more session from 4 to 6. And tomorrow we are planning to walk you through the activity and practice questions for the 2 or 3 weeks, like 6, 7, and 8. I guess we have already seen them for week 6, so we would probably try to do it for week 7 and 8.
Okay, sir. Thank you for the session, sir. Good night.
All right, so yeah, thanks everyone for joining in, and yeah, so we'll meet tomorrow then. Have a good night.
Good night, sir.